Right before my husband stepped on stage to accept the biggest award of his life, he leaned into my ear and whispered, "That's not my real name." Let me ask you something. What would you do in that moment? Smile? Freeze? Or run? Because I did none of those. I just sat there, completely still, as if my entire body forgot how to react. My name is Lena Carter. I'm 34, and up until that exact second, I thought I had a perfect life. The ballroom was glowing. Crystal chandeliers, polished marble floors, people dressed like they belonged in magazines. Everyone was smiling, clapping, celebrating, and at the center of it all was my husband, Daniel Carter, 38. The man everyone admired, the man I trusted with everything. He had built a successful tech company from nothing. People called him brilliant, visionary, untouchable. And me? I was the proud wife sitting in the front row, heart full, eyes locked on the stage, waiting to watch him win. But something had felt off all night. You ever get that feeling? That quiet, creeping sense that something isn't right, but you can't explain why? Daniel had barely spoken during dinner. His smile looked forced. He kept checking his phone under the table like he was waiting for something or someone. At one point, someone congratulated him using his full name, Daniel Carter, and for a split second, I saw it. A flicker. Not pride, not happiness. Fear. I ignored it. I told myself he was nervous. Anyone would be. This was the biggest moment of his career. Then they called his name. The entire room erupted in applause. People stood, cheered, cameras flashed everywhere. Daniel stood up slowly, and that's when it happened. He grabbed my hand, tight, too tight. Then he leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. After tonight, things might change. My heart skipped. And then he said it. Lena, that's not my real name. I felt the air leave my lungs. Before I could even process what he meant, he let go, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the stage like nothing had just happened. Smiling, confident, perfect. And I just sat there, surrounded by applause, one question echoing in my mind louder than anything else. If that's not his real name, then who did I marry? Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What kind of secret makes a man confess right before the biggest moment of his life that his own name is a lie? I couldn't move. The applause was still roaring around me as Daniel stepped onto the stage, shaking hands, smiling for cameras like nothing had just shattered in the front row, like he hadn't just dropped a sentence that rewrote 10 years of my life. 10 years. That's how long I had known him, or at least how long I thought I had. I forced myself to breathe, to look normal. People were turning toward me, smiling, nodding, whispering, "You must be so proud." And I nodded back, mechanically, like a puppet. But inside, my thoughts were racing. That's not my real name. What did that even mean? As Daniel began his speech, confident, charming, every word perfectly delivered, I found myself drifting backward in time, to the night we met. He introduced himself as Daniel Carter. Easy smile, steady voice. He said he had a complicated past, but who doesn't, right? I never pushed. I never questioned it. Maybe that was my first mistake. Because now that I think about it, there were gaps. Small ones. Easy to ignore back then. He never talked about his childhood. Not really. No funny family stories, no old friends dropping by. And his family? I had never met a single one. Not in 10 years. He always had a reason. They're not close, they live far away, it's complicated, and I believed him. Every time. Back in the present, the room erupted again as Daniel finished his speech. Standing ovation, people cheering, calling his name, over and over again. But now, hearing it felt wrong, like they were celebrating someone who didn't exist. I studied him as he stepped off the stage. His smile was flawless, but his hands? They were shaking, just slightly, enough that only someone who knew him as well as I did would notice. Or thought they did? That's when I saw him. A man, standing across the room, mid-40s maybe, not clapping, not smiling, just staring directly at Daniel. No, at us. Our eyes met for a brief second, and something in his expression made my stomach twist. Recognition. Certainty. He started walking toward me. Slow. Deliberate. And when he finally reached my table, he leaned in just enough so only I could hear him. His voice was calm. Too calm. "You don't know who your husband really is, do you?" My heart stopped. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't the only one who knew something was wrong. A stranger knew my husband's secret before I did. Tell me, would you trust him? Because I didn't at first. I turned to the man, my pulse pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Up close, he looked even more unsettling. Calm, controlled, like he had all the answers I was desperate for. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice tighter than I expected. He didn't hesitate. "Marcus Hale." No smile, no small talk, just a name, delivered like it carried weight. I glanced toward Daniel across the room. He was surrounded by people now. Handshakes, laughter, congratulations. Completely unreachable. Completely normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. Marcus followed my gaze and leaned slightly closer. "Did he ever tell you his real name?" There it was again. That question. And suddenly, I couldn't answer, because the truth is, I didn't know anymore. My silence said everything. Marcus nodded slowly, like he'd just confirmed something he already suspected. Then, without another word, he pulled out his phone. "Look at this." He turned the screen toward me, and my world tilted. It was Daniel. Same face, same eyes, same everything. But under the photo, a different name. Evan Rios. I blinked. Once, twice, hoping it would somehow change. It didn't. "That's not possible," I whispered, but my voice sounded weak, even to me. Marcus didn't argue. He just watched me carefully. That photo was taken 8 years ago, before he disappeared. Disappeared. The word hit hard. "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat dry. Marcus's tone didn't change. "Your husband didn't just change his name. He erased himself. New identity, new life, clean slate." I shook my head, instinctively rejecting it. "No, you're wrong. You don't know him." But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Because deep down, I realized something terrifying. There were parts of him I didn't know.
Marcus leaned in one last time, his voice dropping just enough to feel dangerous. "If he's still the man I knew, you're not just being lied to." He paused. "You're in danger." My stomach dropped, and before I could ask another question, before I could even process what he meant, Daniel's voice cut through the noise behind me. "Lena?" I turned. He was standing there now, watching us, his expression no longer calm. It was sharp, alert, almost afraid. His eyes flicked to Marcus, and in that instant, everything changed. Because whatever Daniel had been hiding, he knew it was about to come out. Have you ever looked at someone you love and suddenly realized you might not know them at all? That was the exact moment I looked at Daniel and felt like I was seeing a stranger wearing his face. He stood there, just a few steps away, but it felt like miles. His expression had changed completely. No more charm, no more polished confidence, just something tight, controlled, like he was calculating every possible outcome in real time. "Lena," he said again, quieter this time, "come with me." But I didn't move, because Marcus was still beside me, and Marcus wasn't backing down. "You should tell her, right now." His jaw tightened. For the first time tonight, I saw something crack in him. Not anger, not fear exactly, something heavier. Resignation. He glanced around the room, at the crowd, the cameras, the celebration still happening just meters away, then back at me. And finally, he said it. "Not here." That alone was enough to make my skin go cold. We moved. Not together, not peacefully, just away from the noise, toward a quieter corridor outside the ballroom. My heels echoed against the marble as I followed him, my heart beating so hard I thought it might physically hurt. When we stopped, Daniel didn't look at me right away. Instead, he exhaled slowly, like he had been holding something in for years. Then he spoke. "My name used to be Evan Rios." My breath caught. Marcus didn't say a word. He just stood there, arms crossed, watching. Daniel continued, voice low but steady. "Years ago, I was involved in things I shouldn't have been. Financial fraud, bad people, worse decisions." He paused, swallowing hard. "When everything collapsed, I ran." I felt my stomach twist. "So, Daniel Carter?" I whispered. "A name I built, a life I created from nothing. I changed everything, I stayed clean, I became someone else." My mind couldn't catch up. "You lied to me for 10 years," I whispered. He shook his head quickly. "I didn't lie about who I became. I lied about who I used to be." Marcus finally spoke, stepping forward. "That's not the whole story." Daniel went still. And in that silence, I felt it again, that same sinking feeling from the beginning. There was more, something he still wasn't saying. Daniel looked at me now, really looked at me, and what he said next made my blood run cold. "Lena, I didn't disappear alone." Before I could ask what he meant, we heard footsteps rushing toward us down the corridor, fast, heavy, multiple. And then a voice echoed through the hallway. "Police, nobody move." Daniel's eyes snapped wide, and in that instant, I realized whatever truth was coming next was going to destroy everything. They weren't just coming for him, they were coming for the life I thought I had. The moment those footsteps hit the corridor, everything slowed down. Daniel didn't run, he didn't try to escape, he just stood there, frozen for a second that felt like an entire lifetime. Then, quietly, almost like he already knew this moment would come someday, he whispered, "It's over." The officers entered fast, sharp voices, controlled movement, no chaos, just certainty. One of them stepped forward and said the words that made my entire body go numb. "Evan Rios, you are under arrest for outstanding fraud charges and identity evasion." So it was true. All of it. The man I married, the name I trusted, the life I built. A constructed identity layered over a buried past. Daniel, Evan, didn't resist. He just looked at me, not at the officers, at me. And for the first time tonight, his expression wasn't controlled. It was human. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said softly. "So when did you plan to tell me? Ever?"
He didn't answer immediately. That silence was the answer. Marcus stepped back, finally satisfied. He wasn't just hiding from his past. He was hoping it would never catch up to him. And it had. The legal aftermath unfolded quickly after that night. Daniel's company was placed under investigation within days, accounts frozen, partnerships suspended. The public image of the perfect tech visionary collapsed overnight. Reporters swarmed, headlines exploded. And me? I became part of the story too. The wife who didn't know. The wife who should have known. But the truth wasn't that simple. Because emotionally, I was shattered in ways I couldn't explain. I had loved him. Not the name, not the identity. Him. Or who I believed him to be. Weeks later, I was called in for questioning, then documents, then testimony. I had to relive everything, every moment I missed, every detail I ignored. And through it all, I kept asking myself one question. Did I ever really know him, or just the version he built for me? Months passed. His sentence came down, reduced due to cooperation and his clean record since reinventing his life. Not freedom, not forgiveness, but something in between. The final time I saw him was through a glass panel. He looked tired, not broken, just finished. "I became better because of you," he said quietly. I nodded, but I didn't smile, because I finally understood something I hadn't before. Love doesn't disappear when truth arrives, but it changes shape. When I walked out of that building, I didn't look back. The world didn't feel the same anymore, but for the first time, it felt like mine again. And as I stepped into the sunlight, I realized the most important truth of all. Sometimes the biggest lie isn't the name someone gives you, it's the life you never questioned until it was already built around you.